Welcome back to Unreal Engine 5, Blueprint Mastery, Door Systems and Interactive Portals. Previously, we finished our setup for our BP flow text. We added some code that if the overlapping other actor has a component that has the tag P, and that is what is overlapping, then turn the visibility on. To do this, we added a tag to our character capsule component. So in the third person, the blueprint third person BP third person character, in the capsule component, we search for tag and added the tag P. Another place that tags could be added, we discussed, is also actor. We didn't demonstrate it, but if we go to class defaults and search again for tag, we can find that the actor has its own tab for tags, where we can see also the tags of other components. So let's close this. Then we proceeded by setting up the BP flow text for the next room, and we started creating the new door, which is the one-way BP one-way door. So in this blueprint, we left a little bit offset the rotation. I can see this should be 0, not -0, but 0. We changed a little bit the location because the pivot is a little bit offset, and we explained that we are going to be moving the door based on the Cartesian system of this blueprint, which is the local relative space and not the world Cartesian system. So world, location, rotation, and scale. Yeah, this is a very big difference. The world location and the relative location, the world rotation and the relative rotation, these are very, and scale of course, important to distinguish between. Because, for example, if we were rotating, let's say correctly, the door in the world location, let's say this was correctly pivoted. For example, we could move the door this way, so it pivots with the actor correctly, and it opens like this, and using the world rotation. Well, this would mean that this door would open only this way. If I wanted to make it this way, it will not work. It wouldn't work like this. It would go up to the world rotation that we set it. So this is important to distinguish. So let's go back here. Let's set this to be somewhere in the middle. It's fine. Now, what are we going to do for animating this door? We're going to go to our tutorial map. We're going to steal the timeline from here. We're going to copy it and actually just the timeline. And we're going to go to our graph and paste it over here. Since we copy it and paste it, it has our values inside, from 0 to 0.5, from 0 to 1. So this is our alpha drive. Now, to do the relative location compared to the world, and this is why I didn't copy this, which is set actor rotation, and we are putting a target as this actor and giving a new rotation, we need to get our door, which is prop pack door 1, and set relative rotation. It's a very similar node. As you can see, it has also swept and teleport, as this one has only teleport, but it means it's sweeping if it's not teleporting. And we're going to connect this here. In the previous case, we lerped through a rotator, but at this case, I want to just right click here and split the rotator, and I'm going to just lerp a float. So I'm going to lerp here from 0 to, I think, let's go to the door, let's rotate it. Yeah, I think it's -90. Yeah, it opens inwards, -90, okay. We could have seen the arrow here also. So original, so from 0 to -90, from A to B. Now, How do we call this? How in the other blueprint we just use the collision over here, and we called the open door. So again, we could have used the collision. Let's bring, it's a box again, so we can bring a event collision begin overlap, and we could just say that when the character they has tag P, and we put a branch again. The way I brought the branch so fast was selecting B and clicking. This brings a branch. So if it's true, then play. And then we have a collision door again, that when we collide with it, it should open. But we don't want to do this. We want to press E. So since we will not be creating a whole system for inputs to change binds, to add binds and everything, we will just be using E to open doors. What we can do is use the player controller. So I'm gonna get player controller. I'm gonna explain in a second, and enable input from the player controller. The target should be self, and the player controller should be on player controller. Now, the way I moved this was by pressing Control and just dragging and dropping it wherever I want. If I pressed Alt and click, it disconnects it. If I have something connected, with Control, I can connect it somewhere else. Now, what is a player controller and what is enabling input? A player controller in Unreal Engine is a part of the game that processes player input, such as keyboard controller actions, and translate them into commands for the player character or any other object in the game. It acts as a link between the player and the game world, basically. Normally, the controller would only get direct inputs, but we can enable input on other actors to allow them to react to specific actions. For example, here we're gonna be waiting for the E action to open the door. So, to achieve that, we're gonna use our collision over here. I'm gonna disconnect with pressing Alt and clicking these things. Actually, I do need this, so I'm gonna cut and paste, and I'm gonna connect this here. So if our player has collided with the cube, then we will enable the input here. Oops, mistake. This should be here. Target should be self. We are enabling input to this actor, to this door, and the player controller is the player controller. So, but when we leave this box, we want to not enable input, to disable it basically. So I'm going to select the box. I'm going to click on the component and overlap. I'm going to click. I'm going to copy paste this. I'm going to connect this here, and I'm going to copy and paste the controller also and call disable input. I'm going to set the target to self and connect the player controller. So now, how do we activate E when pressed E? Well, this is easy. If I right click and type keyboard, we can see there is basically all the keyboard buttons, which if I call E, let's find E, here it is. If I call it, it creates an event on its own. So since we have enabled input, this will do something. Let's demonstrate this for a second. Let's put a print string here. It says hello. So I'm gonna play on the map. If I'm pressing E now, it does nothing. If I go next to the door and enter this collision and press E, it says hello. If I leave, it does nothing again. So this only works while it has enabled input. Now, if we had other executions with E. We have the override parent binding, which will override whatever E is doing in other things, and it will consume also input. There is also modifiers, like if you want to have shift and E at the same time. Anyway, there is a lot about it. But that is basically an input node. To animate our door, we could just directly connect this here, but then we would be only able to open our door. So if I go like this and press E, I can only open it. I cannot close it. But I think this is a good stopping point for this one. I'm gonna see you on the next. Goodbye.